10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go for it.
Good morning. I'm opening the meeting of the San Juan County Planning Commission for Friday, January 15th, 2021 at 8:38. The meeting will be live streamed and hopefully everybody will have access that chooses it. I'd like to go through the roll call of the commissioners to confirm who's here. Sheila Garquin.
Here.
David Kane. Hopefully everybody will.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Thank you, David. Nick Nolinger. Is Nick available? Sheila Garquin. Linda, do you know if he is? He had trouble.
Camille, I'm looking. I don't see him in at this point. I sent him an invite again yesterday just to make sure he had it, and he did get it. I
see. Okay. Well, he had trouble last meeting, I think, or the meeting before. So hopefully he will call in if there's a problem. Mike Pickett. Mike.
I'm here. Yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. Dale Randy. You're looking suntan, Mike.
Dale, you're muted. There you are.
Okay.
So glad to be on you.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Steve, you?
You say Steve? Yes.
Yeah.
Steve is
And
here.
also Steve Smith. Thank you.
Yes.
And I'm Camille Euler. We'll move to confirm the agenda for today's meeting. Are there any changes to the agenda? If not, I'll confirm the agenda as it's submitted. We'll move to the December 18th approval of the December 18th, 2020 minutes. I'd like a motion for approval. Do I see any hands?
This is Mike Pickett. I move we approve the minutes of
Thank you,
December
Mike.
20th.
Is there a
David
second?
Kane will second that.
Thank you. Are there any?
Camille?
Yes.
Who
Yeah.
seconded?
Mike Pickett.
Made the motion. Who seconded the?
David
David.
King.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, we'll move to approve the minutes. All those in favor, you raise your hands. That might be the fastest way to do it.
Camille, the only
Yes.
problem is I can't see everybody's hands, so
Oh,
you'll need to
okay.
list them out for me.
Okay, all right, we'll start again. The motion is to approve the minutes of December 18th. Sheila,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Mike Pickett,
Yes.
Dale Randy,
Yes.
Steve Ruby,
Steve, you're muted.
Did you get me now?
yes.
Yes. Okay.
Steve Smith,
I was not a commissioner at the time.
thank you. And I vote to approve, so the minutes are approved unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the election of officers. There are 3 positions. There's the chair, vice chair, and secretary. They're elected to serve a 1-year term in January of each year. And so I'd like to hear a nomination for chair, please.
This is Steve Ruby. I nominate Camille for chair for another year.
Oh, thanks a lot, Steve.
Yeah, you'll pay me back later.
I will.
This is Mike Pickett. I would second that nomination. Done a good job.
Well, thank you, Mike. Is anybody interested in this position that we haven't heard from? Shall we shake the trees? All right. So, vice chair of the commission.
Camille, if
Yeah.
I can interrupt, please.
Yes.
So, Steve, since there's been no other nomination for chair, could you make your nomination a motion to make Camille the chair, please?
I move that Camille, you're the chair of the planning commission.
And Michael, could you second that motion?
I second that motion.
Thank you. And now we need a vote.
So you want to vote on each position rather than a whole slate, I take it.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
we'll do that. All right, Sheila,
Yes.
David Kane,
Yes.
Mike Pickett,
Yes.
Dale Ramsey,
Yes, please.
Steve Ruby,
Yes.
Steve Smith.
Yes.
I choose to abstain. So I guess I'm serving another term. All right, vice chair. Is there anybody who would like to? Tim Blanchard had been the chair the vice chair last year, and he is not currently serving as a commissioner. So we need a nomination for someone who's currently on the commission.
Camille, if I may, the job of the vice chair is that any time that Camille cannot be in attendance at our meeting, they would assume the duties of the chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda.
I would,
Well,
I would like to make the motion that David Kane be our vice chairman.
did you hear that, Linda?
I did. Dale, you might need to turn some volume up a little bit.
Oh, no. Okay.
Okay. I will.
may even stand up. I hereby move that David
Okay.
Kane be our vice chairman for this year.
Okay.
for
Is there a
2021.
second to that?
I will second it, Linda.
Okay, Camille.
All right. Are there any further nominations?
I did. This is Mike Pickett. I'm sorry. I didn't hear who was nominated.
David Kane?
Okay, great. If you're
Okay.
asking, I vote yes.
Okay, I am asking.
Oh, we
Um,
took
Man,
care of that.
I don't know if I'm ready for that. I'm not
Oh, I
the
think
Robert's
you are.
Rules expert.
It's
I think
okay.
we should.
We can get you through it.
I think we should go with someone who's got a little more context on that, or these meetings could even be more troublesome if I'm running them.
No, I don't think so.
David, excuse me, Camille. David, are you seriously, right now, dyed in the wool,
Well-
don't want to be the vice chair? You need to say for sure.
Well, I would always like to defer to. This is only my fourth meeting. I would love to take a back seat on this right now if someone else would be so kind to
Okay.
step forward. But
So Dale,
I'm doing my
okay,
public service
thank
here.
you. Thank you, David. Dale and Camille, would you like to withdraw your motion?
I will do so. Dale is
Dale?
the one who did the motion.
Well, I'm prepared to withdraw it for the moment. Yes, so consider my motion having been made to withdraw David. But my announcement is what happens next will determine whether I make that motion.
I would move that Dale Roundy nominated for the vice chair. And let's see. I move that Dale Randy be vice chair of the commission.
I second that.
Thank you, Sheila. Did you get those names, Linda?
Yes, I did. And we're moving that Dale Roundy be vice chair.
Correct.
Is it time for comments now? Discussion?
Yes?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Madam Chair, this is Mike Pickett. I'm having a difficult time hearing Dale. It's not quite loud enough for me.
Yeah, I can't hear him very well either.
Well, what I was going to say, and what I did say was that I'd like to speak on that point. I am really not prepared to be a vice chairman who would be stepping in on Neil's absence. I just don't have the time. We want to be prepared, and unfortunately, David, you may be in a similar situation, but I just think that you have the media skills to do this. I think being new and fresh to the board is not an inconvenience. You talk about protocols, procedures, Robert's rules. Linda and Camille and the others can assist there, but I just don't think that becomes a big issue. And I would ask Mike, who's our former chair, whether he would think your being on the board for only 4 months would serve you as a service in that way.
Yeah, I think it also goes just to my capacity to take this on. I'm super active on the Agricultural Resource Committee, and I'm a policy chair there. Building my own house. I have a business I'm running and a second business I'm starting. So I'm just, this one Friday a month for me right now is
Camille, would you please
so,
then withdraw your motion?
Oh, for Dale Randy. Was
Correct.
there a second?
Is the-
I don't think there was a second, Linda. Or maybe
The
Sheila,
second-
did you second the? This is crazy.
Okay. Camille, maybe I can make this a little easier. In the nomination, whoever you'd like to nominate, don't make a motion to nominate. Somebody suggests somebody, then we can have the conversation as to whether they're interested or not before
Okay.
we make a motion. So Camille, you're withdrawing that motion, and Sheila, you're second, okay with withdrawing? Okay, thank you.
All right.
So is there anybody interested in being vice chair?
Ty, you look
Who's that?
Yes.
Say Ty. If you can't hear me, I get it.
Dale, I am not understanding anything from you at this point.
I take it back anyway. Can you hear that?
I heard you taking it back. Yeah, that's whatever it was.
Okay.
Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Mike Pickett. I'll
Yes.
volunteer to be vice chair for the
Thank
year
you.
coming, and let's get going.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much, Mike. So we have a
No
volunteer.
vacations, Camille. No vacations.
I don't plan. Okay, let's have a
Camille?
motion to, what? Go
You
ahead.
can make the motion.
I-
Why don't you make the motion and we'll get a second?
I move that Mike Pickett be vice chair of the planning commission.
I second.
I second it. Steve Ruby.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank
Steve.
you, Steve.
Okay, all right. Let's call the roll. Sheila,
Yes.
David,
Yes, thank you, Mike.
thank you, Mike. Mike,
Enthusiastic, yes.
oh, thank you. Dale,
Yes.
Steve Ruby,
Yes.
Steve Smith,
Yes.
Camille, yes. Okay. Second, the motion is passed. Mike has generously offered to be vice chair, and I promise to hardly ever be sick. So that leaves us with secretary, and Linda, I think you can confirm that the secretarial job is mostly a title. Is that correct?
It really is. Occasionally, let's see, I can go back, say 5 years. I think the secretary's done one thing. The secretary, if you guys decide to write a letter to the council or write a letter to somebody as a group, the secretary would put the letter together, make sure at a meeting that it got signed, and then I would probably be the one sending it forward anyway. So there's not been a lot to do as secretary.
Okay. Well, Steve, Ruby, would you volunteer to be secretary?
Actually, I was going to suggest that Dale continue in that job because he's done so well this past year.
I have done almost everything I can think of that I was asked to do.
Okay. Can we unanimously reappoint Dale Roundy to be the secretary of the commission and then move on to our agenda?
Yes. Yes.
Everybody say
Absolutely.
yes
Yep,
at the same
absolutely.
time.
Yes.
Yes.
Hearing no dissent, motion passed. Okay.
Thank you for your confidence.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for doing nearly everything that you were asked. All right, let's move on to the DCD update. And Erica, I assume you might be telling us about the county council's vote on moratorium on vacation rentals.
That is correct. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Yes, that would be the biggest topic of the day was the county council did enact a vacation rental moratorium that became effective 12 a.m. on Wednesday, 2 days ago, based on your recommendations. And we have scheduled, I have to get them information and data for a workshop on the 25th, where we're going to work with them on sort of overall goals and strategies and get direction from them. And then there'll be a hearing on the moratorium on February 23rd, because you are required when you enact a moratorium to follow up with a hearing within 60 days. The moratorium is for 6 months, but it can be extended provided we put together a work program, and it depends on where we go with it. The Shoreline Master Program is very close to being approved, but has not yet been approved by Ecology, but we do expect that almost any day. In terms of technology, I will send an email out. If any of you would like to have a county email that you can use for correspondence related to the Planning Commission and for logging in and those types of things, I would have to work with you a little bit probably on getting you reset up again, because right now you've been set up with your own emails. But if that's something that you would like, I will be happy to get you set up that way. I think in terms of public records and things like that, it's a better way to go. And it should make your team situation somewhat easier, although we've now got everybody set up, so I'm hesitant to poke anything. That's my update. If you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Oh, I guess the other thing is we put together on our comprehensive plan website all of the draft documents that you've been working on over the last 2 years are now compiled on a web page so that you can go and compare what's the new stuff versus the old stuff. And Adam's going to go over that, I think, with his schedule. And I think that will make it easier for everybody to wrap their heads around where we are in the process. And we can talk a little bit about that later. So if you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have a question, Erica. So the moratorium that involves going back and communicating with all the non-conforming, non-performing vacation rentals that are in existence now. And obviously that's a staffing issue. So I'm wondering what the staffing situation might be, what the timeline might be that you think you could possibly, finish that process.
So one of your recommendations was to simplify our code enforcement process to make it easier for us to do that code enforcement. So we'll start, we've already had a few more abandonments. We'll send out letters, hopefully in the next 2 months, to the folks that are non-conforming, especially since I'll put all the numbers together and we'll see who wasn't in 2020 either. And then we'll send out letters that give them an option to abandon their permits. So we do have quite a few takers the last time we did that, rather than have us go through a permit revocation process. But we'll start the process to do that. We do think that the folks that are non-compliant are probably not active, and certainly we would prioritize the people who we find renting. Who haven't been compliant in our compliance level. But we think most of those are being rented, and people think that because it's not active, they don't need to do anything.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so we don't, I think it's a paper exercise mostly, but we'll see that as we're doing some enforcement. But like I said, now we're on to vacation rental regulations, and we have really big things that we're going to start working on for the comp plan. So the agricultural and resource lands, and all of the maps, that's sort of where the rubber meets the road, is what we'll start talking about. And I think, that will also be a lot of work for us. So just be patient.
Okay.
Erica, David Kane here. A quick question. So I'm really excited that you guys are putting together all the historical documents, and that we're going to be able to see like the last 2 years of all of the work and do side by side. I think that's great. So thank you. I'm just curious. There's a lot of public comment that's come in on all these documents over that time window. Now, specifically, I've done a lot of work on the ARC, and it's an advisory committee, and some of those we've sent memos, I know, that have gone to the Planning Commission. I just wondered, do those come in as just a public comment, or do those have a sort of an elevated status because they're advisory committee memos? And I'm just thinking about what's on the agenda today. We did two memos in the past that were comments that might be germane to have the Planning Commission see today, but they are back in history somewhere, so they may not even be visible to anyone. So I just wondered how we might be looking at that.
So we do post everybody's comments on the comp plan elements page, which has drafts, and it also has public comments by element. Now, the role of the ARC is advisory to council. And so in terms of their comments, they come in as a public comment to the Planning Commission, and I think it's up to the planning commissioners they get treated like other public comments. If it were, if the ARC felt really strongly that their comments needed to have higher weight, then they probably should make a recommendation to the council and have the council give direction to the Planning Commission and the department. Do you see? But that being said, we are trying to, when we've been going through all of these drafts, we have been bringing up all the comments and having discussions about them. And we are, at least the ARC comments, they gave us requirements at the beginning on the scope of work, and council told us to do those things. So we have incorporated those things into our draft to the extent that they belong in the comp plan versus regulations. And those things we've also been discussing. So there is sort of that scope of work where we have to do it. Council's told us we want you to do these things, and then there's public comments that come in. It's up to the Planning Commission to look at those comments and think about them and give them weight and whether it's appropriate, community wide. Does that answer your question?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Really appreciate all the great work you guys have been doing.
Erica, a follow-up to that. It seems to me sometime in the last year I saw spreadsheet that showed public comments and follow-up action or responses, whether there was action or no action. Am I dreaming?
I don't recall. I think we may have discussed that maybe we need to do something like that. I think that we are thinking about now how we make sure that people see that their comments have either, have been addressed or considered. And there's a variety of ways we could do it. We could put together a spreadsheet and go through and make sure and say what page, or what page of the comp plan. We had also thought about adding a flag in our draft documents for, on different places that we'd received a comment with a link to the comment, which may be a more effective way of doing it. So let us think about that. I don't think we have one right now.
Okay, thank you. Adam, I see you have your hand up. Would you like to comment?
Yeah, I wasn't planning on briefing you guys on the schedule. That was the council briefing on Tuesday that we did. But I figured while we were talking about this, I could show you the page with our current drafts and the elements since we're here. It might be helpful to see where they're at on the website. So I'll share my screen here. So can everybody see the screen here? This is our new page that we added on the comp plan or on the community development page. And these are the current drafts. So they're the most recent drafts that have gone through the county council and the planning commission. So we have links to each one. I've noted here on the page where no changes have been proposed. So like, this is just the adopted shoreline master program element. We haven't proposed any changes during the comp plan. So all of these links will take you to the most recent draft of that document. And I can share this link. I'll send out an email with the link to this page, and then also the next page that I'll show you. So this is just the most recent drafts. If you want to see kind of the historical documents, the previous drafts, you can go to our comprehensive plan elements page. And what this does is it's broken out all of our documents by the element that it applies to. So for example, if you go to land use and rural, you can see our staff documents. So these are our presentations and staff reports and any other documents that have come from the staff. Resources or anything like, just kind of reference material. And then all of the public comments are posted on this page as well. So you can read through those public comments. And these go back, land use hasn't received as many comments in the past, but you can see they go back to like 2017. There's probably a couple of comments in here from 2016. So this is where this elements page is really where we kind of have put everything together with the public comments and all of the other materials. So I'll send you guys a link to both the elements page and our current drafts page, which shows all of our most recent drafts.
Thank you, Adam. That's very helpful.
You're welcome.
Okay. Are there further questions of either Adam or Erica at this time from the commissioners, or shall we move to public access time?
Camille, one
Yeah.
quick thing. Could you ask for if Nick Nollinger is out there, please?
Certainly. Nick, have you been able to join the meeting? Nick Nollinger? Apparently not, Linda.
Okay, thank you for checking.
Sure. All right. I'm going to open public access time. I see a number of people on this at this meeting that I assume some of you have comments to make. Would you please raise your, I see 10 people raising their hands. Okay, let's begin with Kai Sandburn.
Hello. I trust you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Kai Sandburn. I live on Lopez. I'm with the group Community Rights San Juan Islands, and I, first of all, want to really thank the planning commissioners for making the motion to reconsider the vision statement. I understand it is a massive amount of work has been done in every step of this process, but I just really respect your willingness to reconsider that vision statement given the changing times we're in. Our goal with our group Community Rights San Juan Islands and revisiting that vision statement has been to build in more holistic thinking to reflect current understanding of the interconnection between the environment and the economy, the individual and the community, humans and nature and the natural world, and to reflect that the beauty of the San Juan Islands is more than aesthetic. It's more than a backdrop for our lifestyles and the basis of our land values. These islands, the forests, shorelines, waters, bird life and marine life that we share with this place with are living systems. They are vibrant in their generosity and abundance, and this needs to be reflected in our governance and our planning. They are also very vulnerable. So we need to really address this in our language and our policy making. I think we are in a different place in 2021 than we were, when the comp plan was last revisited. So today in the discussion with land use policy, please keep this in mind in general, but in specifically addressing the impacts of climate change in land use planning. It's as an element of the vision statement, it doesn't have its own section. So I think the assumption is that it would be addressed throughout the comprehensive plan. I don't have any specifics to offer, so I apologize, but I just urge you to address climate impacts throughout the land use section and in your discussions. It's responsible to do this in 2021, and it will only become more important in the future. Growth in our region is and will be driven by climate impacts here and elsewhere. Our county is and will continue to be impacted by changing weather patterns, longer dry periods with drier forests and dry wells, and more erratic rainfall. The planning process needs to consider how climate change will impact land use and how land use will impact our climate. And I just want to close by saying thank you very much for all that you do. It's a big commitment, and you're really putting in the work. So with gratitude, I sign off. Thank you.
Thank you, Kai. I see Brent Lyle's hand up. Would you like to comment, please, Brent? Good morning.
I would. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, let me go ahead and get started. Hello again, I'm Brent Lyles, Executive Director of Friends of the San Juans. And first off, I wanted to thank county staff for helping us make sure our written comments didn't go to the spam folders this time. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to see them. I appreciate that. I have a couple items I wanted to share. For us at Friends and for our thousands of members, agricultural and forest resource lands are critically important, key to the health and resiliency of all the various ecological systems of our islands and marine ecosystems as well. Agricultural and forest resource lands are key to our economy in so many ways, and of course vitally important to the rural and community character of our islands, which are under threat from ever-increasing visitation. So at Friends, our priority is that there be no loss of agricultural or forest resource lands, and in fact to increase those wherever possible. We have some real concerns about the scoring systems proposed for these lands, and please see our written comments for more on that. In terms of mineral resource lands, mining operations are incredibly invasive to neighboring properties with extreme noise, heavy trucks, dust, and so on. I've actually occupied a house next to a gravel mine, and that is no joke. We'd like to propose that no new mining operations be permitted in San Juan County, and accordingly that the mineral resource overlay only be applied to existing operations. Next, as you know, the state has requirements about maintaining viable ag and forestry industries here on the islands. For forestry, that means loggers, drivers, mills, and so on, in addition to the amount and quality of forestry lands. There appears to be from what we've seen, there appears to be a shortage of forestry experts engaged in this process, and these folks could help us understand what does a viable forestry look like here. that needs to be addressed. And for Friends, while we would not want this to slow down the comp plan process, we would like to propose creation of a Forestry Resources Committee comparable to the ARC. What a tremendous help that would be for county staff, for the Planning Commission, and for the council, of course. I want to share one more thought with you, which is to offer my strong support for a suggestion that came up earlier. We've been concerned that many of the comments we've made in the past have not been addressed. And to be clear, it's one thing if you consider our suggestions and don't agree with us, that's okay, that's how this process works. But we're actually concerned that our comments aren't even being seen by county staff or the planning commissioners. I understand that the volume is overwhelming. I'm new to this process too, so I get that. In light of that, in order to support your efforts to manage that volume of information and support your decision-making as commissioners, I'd like to strongly support the suggestion made earlier that the Planning Commission use a comment tracking tool like the ones the county has used for other processes, a spreadsheet or whatever, so that you can see those comments in an organized way and, importantly, what the staff response to each comment is. So that's different from the list of submitted comments that Adam shared, because this would be organized comment by comment and show responses. As a community organization, that would be immensely helpful to us, so we're not submitting our comments over and over. And it seems like it would be helpful for all of us. Thank you so much. That concludes my comments. I really appreciate the commission, as always, for your work in this process. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Mike Pickett, did you have something, or should I continue? Okay, next.
I have some.
Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead. I wanted to say that I really appreciate, Brent, the information we get from islands, and especially this one, very thorough, lots of good ideas that I'd love to have the department comment on. And I do realize that we don't always get your pages because they've been going to the dump file before they come to us. But I'd say also that this one that you've sent is 20 pages long, quite detailed, and it arrived Wednesday afternoon. We got it, I think, the same day. It'd be very helpful if Friends could plan to submit information that ends up getting to us at least a week in advance, so that we have time to read it and study it. In the past, there's been a lot of difficulty having actual time to read your very thoughtful comments.
Thank you very much for that suggestion. And in this case, I think the volume speaks to the amount of time it took us to put those together. So we did get those to you a little bit late this time, but we have endeavored to turn them in a week in advance, and we will continue to do that in the past. Thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Brent. Next in public comment is Faith Vandeput.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning.
So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. So I'm Faith Vandeput. I'm the coordinator of the Agricultural Resource Committee. So we've been working hard looking at all these issues. And I just want to start off with saying thank you so much to community development and everyone has been working so hard over there, and to the Planning Commission for so thoughtfully engaging in all of these issues. So I want to comment specifically on the document that the comments that the community development put forward in their memo from 12/29, and the ARC submitted written comments. So hopefully you have all had a chance to look at those, and I'm sorry they went in a little bit last minute as well. So we will try and work on that and get them in so you have more time to review them in the future. So first off, I just want to say that in general, the the recommendations that community development put forward are very much in alignment with recommendations that the ARC has put forward in the kind of over the last 2 years when we've put various memos forward that relate to land use. So I want to start with an observation that a little bit echoes what Kai brought up, that one thing that we noticed in looking at this is that climate change is not addressed in the land use section, and we don't have any specific recommendations at this time, but in our conversations we were wondering if there's a process for addressing climate change in the land use section, and also kind of put forward that the ARC would be happy to work on language for goals or policies related to agriculture and land use and climate change. So that was an observation. Then I wanted to talk the natural resource designation criteria, and Brent from Friends also kind of mentioned this, that there are in the WAC, there are 2 other kind of criteria that are that we can use for our criteria for the natural resource designation, and one of them is around food security, and the other is having sufficient amount of agriculture to maintain and enhance the economic viability over the long term. So I just wanted to flag those because they were not mentioned in the report. And there was a docket request, and that was in that memo. The ARC totally supports that, and we have recommended that adoption of that accessory agriculture definition in the past. And then the goals that were put forward, we totally support. They're in alignment. And then if you want to go deeper into policies, the ARC has recommended additional policies that go deeper, and in a memo from last year, we recommended a whole new additional section with a goal and policies that are about agriculture, and you have that in your files and in the recommendations that we just put forward. So I am going to leave it with that, and thank you so much for all of your work, and we look forward to continuing to engage in this process. Oh, and one more note, we are going to be submitting comments and recommendations on the kind of the criteria process. So, but we have not done that yet. So thank you.
Thank you, Faith.
Camille?
Yes.
Can I interrupt? Mike Pickett, would you take your hand down unless you plan to speak the whole time? Mike Pickett, hello? Thank you. Go ahead, Camille.
The next person who would like to comment is Lerner Limbach.
Hi, everybody. Good morning.
Morning.
So I'm Lerner Limbach. Also commenting on agricultural aspects. I'm on the ARC Policy Subcommittee, and I was previously the chair of the Ag Resource Committee from 2014 to 2019. So my time as chair really was actually largely about starting to work on the comp plan, getting recommendations in. The first memo that we submitted was in 2016. I believe that was the first memo from an advisory committee on the comp plan, or one of the very first, for sure. And a lot of the recommendations that are now in the draft, that are from the ARC have been submitted multiple times, but but have roots in that original memo. So I just wanted to, point that out and just remind, for everybody that from my perspective, this has been a really gratifying experience. Not always easy, and having to sometimes submit things multiple times, but we knew it was a big lift going in, and I appreciate the follow through on the county's part to keep working on incorporating our recommendations, even if they weren't worked in the first time. Most of a lot of the most critical recommendations are in the current draft, and so I know the whole ARC, and just as Faith said, we really look forward to seeing us move beyond this part of the comp plan and working with the county on fleshing out the definitions, fleshing out actual code changes. Everything that we're recommending really comes back to agricultural viability. And just a little side note, I was on the Coffelt Farm meeting last night, and it's like we keep talking about how do we make it so a farm can be successful, and these policies actually make a difference. There's structural changes that need to happen. So can't stress that enough. Specifically, I think we're really excited about the accessory uses definition that Faith mentioned. Really important, and that needs to get fleshed out. We're excited to participate in that. Climate change, I totally agree. That if we could work in some climate change language, that is, it seems like it's definitely a land use issue. Maybe there's somewhere else in the comp.
Do you wish to comment during public access time? Juliet, I believe you're on, and you indicated an interest early on in commenting. Juliet? If there are other members of the public who would like to comment at this time, would you come forward and speak, please? Not hearing any, I will close public access time.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
This is John Campbell.
Oh, hello, John. Please go ahead.
Well, I'm very concerned that this is to express concern that the draft of element B2 fails to provide enough land capacity for the projected growth. The current element B2 states that the county expects an additional 1,524 families and an additional 4,180 dwelling units over the planning period. Now that sounds about right to me. The concern is that the plan provides only for the 1,524 families, the resident population. There is no discussion of capacity for the additional 202,656 units over and above the resident population growth. The plan provides plenty of room for the resident growth, but falls far short of the additional 2,656 presumably recreation homes that are clearly anticipated. The projected countywide capacity for scenario B indicates a capacity for 2,691 units, considerably less than the 4,180 anticipated. Now, equally troubling is that the vast majority of that capacity is in rural areas. Yet the county is obliged to provide for 50% of anticipated growth in the UGAs. This is essential to encourage growth in urban areas, preserve rural character, and make adequate provision for affordable housing. Fundamental goals of the GMA. I don't know whether I'm making any sense or not.
Yes, I think that's very, you were very clear in your statements, John. Is there someone else that would like to comment from the public at this time?
Camille,
Yes.
this is Sheila. I see a participant who's called in on the phone. I don't know the name, but their circle was beeping or blinking, so I think
Chairman,
trying to.
Camille.
Yeah.
Michael, can you hear me?
Who is this, please? Michael?
Michael Berlin. Can you hear me?
Faintly, yes.
I have some comments. I sent an email into Sophie and was talking to her about some comments, and I'm not sure if they got on the agenda or not.
I'm not sure that they did, but would you like to comment and point out your comments?
Well, yes, I'm in Michael Durland. I have the Deer Harbor Boat Works. It's an industrial zoned area in the Deer Harbor hamlet. And there were a number of issues that I talked with the Deer Harbor Plan Review Committee about. And I'm not sure that they got on the list. One of the big things is that that being an industrial area, there's very few uses that would be acceptable to this increasingly gentrified area. And I am a permitted boatyard and marina, which has a number of commercial uses which would be better suited for my area. And since I'm zoned industrial, those uses are denied me. There were also a few uses that were vested in the property before I purchased it. They are now noted as I need a conditional use permit to have them to upgrade or to increase their use. So I did send an email. I hope Sophie gave it to you, which detailed some of these items and a few more that I'd like you to take a look at.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Try and track down where those comments might have gone. Perhaps Adam or Sophia isn't scheduled to be presenting today, but we'll track it down. Thank you for commenting. Anybody else line that would like to speak now? Sheila, did you see any other hands or phone numbers that came up?
There was a phone number ending in 56 that's
I see that, but I don't see anybody there.
Sheila, that was me. That was Michael Durland. That was me.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Then I see another phone number ending in 35. Okay.
Well, 35 is Campbell.
It's Campbell. Thank you, John.
You're welcome. Hi.
All right, and I will close public access time now. Hello? Okay. I'm closing public access time, and we will move to the briefings on the comprehensive plan 2836 update, beginning with element B2, land use and rural urban growth area goals and policies. Adam Zapp.
All right, good morning.
Good morning, Adam.
We've got a couple of sections of the land use element that we'll be looking at today. I figured we'd start with the one that we've already looked at. In October, we looked at the urban growth area policies, goals and policies. And so let me pull that draft up here, share this with the folks that can see the screen. So this is the draft of the land use elements. I've incorporated some of the public comments. We haven't received any comments on the urban growth area goals and policies. So we'll just take a quick look at that, and then we'll see the comments once we get to the natural resource land stuff. As a refresher for the members of the committee that were not here in October, our urban growth area goals and policies apply to all of the UGAs in the county. That would be Friday Harbor here on San Juan, East Sound on Lopez Village, or sorry, East Sound on Orcas Island, and Lopez Village on Lopez. Friday Harbor is an incorporated town, and so most of the land use within the town is regulated by the town itself. The other two, East Sound and Lopez Village, are both unincorporated, and so they're within the jurisdiction of the county. So these goals and policies apply to those urban growth areas that are unincorporated, and then also they apply to designating those urban growth areas that are incorporated. So essentially, the county sets the boundary for the town of Friday Harbor urban growth area. The town decides on their boundary and what applies within their jurisdiction. That's how the urban growth areas work here. As I mentioned, we went through these goals and policies in October. We had, in this draft, we've proposed a new goal 2. Let me get down to that. This was something that the committee wanted to add, preserving the community character in those unincorporated urban growth areas, so in East Sound and Lopez Village. We really wanted to kind of define the purpose of the goal and policy here is to define what that character is, so that we don't adopt policies or regulations that may jeopardize that. And so we have the first policy implementing that goal, or related to that goal, is defining what that character is, the scale and intensity of the built environment in those urban growth areas. In discussing this, I believe it was Dale Roundy recommended that we add two policies to this that talk about air and water quality and minimizing pollution. That was a key factor in the character of those urban growth areas. And then also kind of a policy to describe how industrial and commercial or non-residential uses relate to the residential uses. Kind of recognizing that the majority of the uses in our UGAs are residential, but we do have these commercial centers in each of the UGAs. So that led to the development of policy 1E and 1F here. Highlight these guys for you. And then also, so in addition to those, we drafted up, policies 6 and 7 as well here. To start with, I suppose the question really is here on E and F, as you can see on the screen that I've highlighted. Does this get at what the Planning Commission was had suggested at that October meeting related to pollution and the relationship between non-residential and residential uses?
Okay, Adam, I see Mike Pickett has his hand up.
Adam, I have a quick question on E and F. And how do we handle, what do we have that helps improve what we already have? So this is essentially dealing with new construction or increasing building size, renewing stuff. But what about existing air and water pollution activities? Is that covered somewhere else in the comp plan?
I don't know off the top of my head. Most of the land use policies are going to be directed more at existing or new development. How do we control these things as new things are built? I know that in the water resources element, which is a separate part of the comp plan, there are policies in there that are directed at water quality. I don't know that we have specific policies about air pollution off the top of my head. I'm sure that there are somewhere, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, okay. It would be helpful if, as we go through this thing, if you remember to bring that up, because I think it's important. And I guess the other question, I think the friends brought this up, is the definition of, in Policy 7, the definition of other surrounding land uses, surrounding being a rather large or not so large word. Do you have a comment on how we can better define that, or do we need to?
I think that would be a question for the committee to consider. We could certainly make that more specific, but I think the idea is that in the having it kind of general is best, because we're not getting super specific for like a specific use in Lopez Village or whatever. That would be what the sub area plan gets into. So this is really kind of general direction for as we're looking at other policies and regulations in each specific UGA. We just know that we want to make sure that those surrounding uses and natural environment are not disproportionately impacted by non-residential development.
Erica, do you have a comment?
Yes, I just wanted to emphasize that Adam is correct. I think you are general in your policies, and it provides the guidance for developing regulations, but specific distances and things like that are best in the regulations, because you do a much more targeted process by which you determine areas. That's all.
Mike, did you have any follow-up?
No, that's fine, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Adam, would you like to continue, please?
Sure. So to return to E and F, I would again pose the question on these proposed new policies that was as kind of stated in my staff report. If these address the issues that we were trying to address with respect to air and water quality, addressing pollution, and then industrial and commercial uses. I have the note here that we may want to have some kind of policy about existing sources of air and water pollution, which I don't think, these don't necessarily specifically address the existing sources. It's more focused on new development. So that might be one thing that the Planning Commission may want to recommend drafting up for the next draft.
That it would include existing uses rather than future uses, or both. Correct?
Yes, yeah. And we can spend some time here today if you want to get in, and if you have recommended language, or if you just want to have that kind of general thing, I can come back with something. I haven't really I didn't really think about that one aspect of it in advance of this.
Are there commissioners who would like to address the question from Adam? Looking for hands. Mike.
I'm not sure this is where it goes, Adam. So that's the only reason I suggested. But I think in light of the numerous comments we've been getting over the last few months about things are changing, and we just need to. I just want to make sure that somewhere here we're considering getting better than we are right now, not letting it get any worse in the future. Thank you.
Yes. Sheila, you have your hand up.
Yes, based on public comment that we received about climate change, these suggestions here, A through G, are dealing with the way things look largely. And I'm wondering if there's either here or somewhere else in the comp plan, the suggestion that climate change be considered in energy uses of buildings, using renewables, that sort of thing. Is there a place for that here?
I think instead of so what we're looking at now are the goals and policies for the urban growth areas. There's another section of the land use element that we will take a look at that has general goals and policies. And I think those are broken up by subject. So there's like an energy section of policies, and that kind of creates the linkage between our utilities element, which will have, I know there's some mention of climate change in that element, and then it links that with our land use element. So when we look at those general goals and policies, there may be some places where we can incorporate climate change a bit more to kind of get at that issue. And those general goals and policies are higher level than just specifically for the urban growth areas. And we'll take a look at briefly today, or I don't know how briefly, but that was part of the ARC's comment. So we'll take a look at those general goals and policies here in a minute.
Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm back again. I remember from the last meeting, we asked the council, and it was actually referenced earlier, but we asked the council whether or not we should reopen the discussion on vision. And that it was basically their call. We wanted them to tell us whether they want us to do that. And somebody referenced it earlier in the meeting today. And I just wonder if we could get a response. Did the council address this, and what are they asking us to do, if anything, at this point? Thanks.
I think Erica is going to respond.
Yes. The council, we haven't had an opportunity to bring any of the other issues that you addressed to council. They've taken up vacation rentals to start with. We do anticipate that we'll be setting up some briefings with them, but it's still very early. We've had, I think, 2 meetings with council at this point. So they've taken up the vacation rental, but we haven't had an opportunity to brief them on the other issues we were going to ask for direction on yet.
Okay, thank you. And along this line of conversation we've had right now, is it possible, Adam, that you could, for another meeting, maybe next meeting or the one after, you could bring together all of the items that are in the comp plan drafts or otherwise that deal with climate and deal with pollution, et cetera, bring them all together so we can look at them in total and say, does this seem to cover pollution and with it all in bits and pieces throughout the comp plan, it's difficult sometimes to look at it holistically. So I wonder if we could have that conversation and feel comfortable that we're covering it all throughout these various elements. Thanks.
David Kane, you have David?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Getting back to them unmute. So this goes back to Adam's question here, and I'm looking specifically at the policy E, development should be designed to minimize air pollution, untreated stormwater runoff, etc. And as I sort of look back at the vision statement, we say in there that we should enact incentives and regulations if necessary to reduce our carbon footprint. So I wonder, and this is coming from the climate section in the vision statement, and I wonder if we could roll that in there where we incentivize carbon neutral or carbon reduced footprints when we look at new development. And again, I don't know if this is the right place, but I think the right place for climate change is probably everywhere, because that's what appropriate response is going to take, is a little bit everywhere.
So you would like to expand item E under development with, is that correct?
Yeah, potentially. Like I said, I'm not sure if that's exactly the right spot, but I think there might be an opportunity there to say something like, to include that we enact incentives and regulations to reduce carbon footprint.
Adam, would you like to comment, or would you include that in the next draft?
Well, let's see, you guys can still see my screen here. Let me try just incorporating that idea.
And you might also respond to Mike Pickett's suggestion about, can we have a way to look at where climate change appears throughout the comp plan?
Yeah, I will say that I won't be able to do that before your February meeting. I don't think that's a pretty big project, but part of the later steps of the process here, as we get closer to our public hearing, we'll be looking at the totality of our recommended changes. We have to make sure, part of that is that we're required to make sure that all of our plan is internally consistent, and that we have, that all of our policies are coherent together. But we can also make sure that we want to make sure that we're addressing those issues. So I think as we get into the spring, we can have certain topics like that, like maybe climate change and some of the other housing affordable housing is probably another one of those like big topics where we can look at where those are addressed throughout the plan update.
So, right, so they could be easily tracked.
Right, so you could see, okay, in our utilities element, we have a policy that addresses this aspect of, renewable energy, and in our capital facilities element, we address this thing about, public facilities using that sustainable energy or renewable energy. And then you can see in our land use element, we're addressing it this way. And so I think we can put something like that together, probably March or April, depending on how the next couple of meetings go. We can look at those kinds of things at the topic level. Yeah.
Okay. I see that you have added including greenhouse gases to item E.
Yes. So what I did, for those that can't see the screen, is I incorporated in policy E, it says development should be designed to minimize air pollution. And then I added an interjection there, including greenhouse gases and untreated stormwater runoff to maintain excellent air and water quality. Trying to work in that concept and tie that air pollution not just to sulfuric dioxide or acid rain or whatever, but also tying it to that greenhouse gases.
Okay, let me ask the commission if there's consensus on including that addition to item E. Steve Smith.
Yeah, I'm a little bit curious as to how that might work in practice. I know we're setting an overall, 20,000 foot view, but in practice, what does that possibly mean? Anybody have any ideas?
Well, so part of the purpose of these policies are to guide the formulation of regulations. So in the future, if we were looking at regulations that deal with air pollution, we would then make sure that we're considering greenhouse gases as part of that as we're amending those regulations. The purpose of these policies is really to provide the kind of underpinning of those regulations that we adopt in the future.
Yeah, I understand the overall concept. I'm just wondering, when we actually were to write, or when you were to develop a specific regulation, what some of those regulations might be. If I'm out building a house and I'm trying to minimize my greenhouse gas impact, what am I affecting? Am I saying I have to do what? And I'm trying to think of anything.
Well, so we
David Kane here. Can I comment on that really quick? Because I agree. I don't think the greenhouse gas quite gets us there. I think we're talking about incentives that the county can choose to incentivize this development to guide it in that direction. So whether that be density credits or lot coverage or whatever that happens in these UGAs, but where we could incentivize good outcomes that minimize our footprint and minimize energy use. And yeah, incentive is, I think, where this thing to be pointed.
So you're suggesting that greenhouse gases in E would not necessarily accomplish what we would be looking at, and that under the regulations addressing it more specifically?
I think we want to incentivize carbon neutrality. I think would probably be closer to where I would want to say it. Greenhouse gas, I think, is, I'm not a climate scientist, but I think that carbon neutrality is more what I'd be looking for.
Erica.
Thank you. I think I'm going to suggest that Adam not add any text about climate change into the text at this point. I think it's a bigger thing that we're going to need to talk about, like a larger strategy with the Planning Commission before we start inserting words into this document. So that's what I would recommend at this point. I think it's a bigger discussion when it comes to land use, and I like the idea that maybe the climate change is one of the issue discussions we prepare or talk about with the Planning Commission, so that we can look at everything overall. I do think we need to take a look at how we're going to put it into the land use element, and we would love if you've got the Planning Commission has some suggestions that you could help us with this. Otherwise, we can take a look at it and bring something back. I'm not sure I think we've been thinking about the nuts and bolts at this point. So I think we could either bring something back, or you could give us some suggestions and ideas to start with, and then we can bring something back for the land use element. Does that make sense moving forward?
I believe it does. Let me see what other commissioner is there. Any Mike?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I guess one of the other things you could address is density. This comment we had today and during the public period, and also I think the Friends refers to housing requirements, and I thought we had gone through all that a year or two ago, but somebody's again raising the issue of housing capacity in the UGAs. Can you address that, Adam? Refresh my memory. Thank you.
Yes. So we did go through the land capacity analysis results in 2019. We started in June of that year, and the briefings kind of went all the way through to about January of 2020. And we looked at how many dwelling units could be constructed given the current levels of development and our existing regulations. And then we looked at our projected population growth through the next 20 years and compared those two things. I think the comment that we received today can be addressed by fleshing out the part where we talk about the land capacity analysis. I think there are some details that could be included in that in a subsequent draft that might clarify some of the concerns there. But in terms of ensuring that we have enough capacity to meet our future growth, that's a GMA requirement, and we will make sure that we account for that in the update here and make sure that we have enough capacity. But that'll dovetail better with, I think, our later discussions about the land use map or the official map for the plan.
Thanks, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Erica posed the question that did the commission want to provide some additional language or wait for staff to come back with some draft?
I personally would like to see it treated in a comprehensive way. That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
I agree with Steve. A holistic policy that addresses the carbon footprint, clean energy, renewables, a real look at the entire policy rather than inserting just words or phrases here and there.
I would really like us to have a climate change section in the comprehensive plan. I mean, ideally, that's how we'd address this effectively, is if we dedicated an entire section to it. And I think that's valid. However, that has been a point of discussion in the past, and it was decided it would be sprinkled in. So maybe we should revisit that if we can.
Yeah. Seems like a good idea. Erica or Adam, would you respond to the idea of having a separate climate change?
Yes, this is Erica, and sorry, I turned my camera on. Try not to be too distracting by having the camera on all the time. It was decided by the council when we first did it that we would spread it throughout different sections rather than have a section. That was the direction we've been working under. But then I think that if we're going to do it that way, then I think we need to have a review of how did we, making sure that we did get it everywhere it needs to be. And I do think, a comprehensive strategy kind of thing. I would have to go back and look and see if it was a council direction or if it was a planning commission direction on the sprinkling it throughout. And so I guess that would be something that we can stick on a future agenda for the planning commission to take a look at and make a recommendation on, whether you wanted to, have its own section or sprinkle it throughout.
So you think we should wait until there's a determination as to whether it was council directed or commission directed before we act on including a separate climate change section?
Well, if the planning commission wants to make a recommendation, like we've done in the past on this particular issue that we change it around, then you can do that.
Okay.
I just would need to, I don't recall how the decision was made and whether or not we would have to go back and have a discussion with council about that or,
Right.
but I think you as the planning commission can
Could make a recommendation.
make recommendations to whatever you think is best.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, Sheila, do you have a comment here?
I have a question for Erica. Does it have to be either or, sprinkled and then or a section, or can we have a section that addresses climate change in a big way and then throughout the comp plan, when it's relevant, to put in, sprinkle in, as you say, elements of climate change issues policy?
It's a comprehensive plan. We could probably also do that way. I think there's many different ways of approaching it. We might want to look around. We might to support you by looking around at some other comp plans around to see if there's some really good approaches to it to take a look at. This is where I think it's we may need to have it on the agenda for a bigger discussion. But I think you could do it both ways.
I think it's an important enough issue that it needs to be addressed in a holistic way across the comp plan, but to really specifically lay it out in a section.
David Kane?
Yeah, I agree with Sheila, and I wonder if the planning commission would like to have a brief discussion on whether we should make a recommendation to the council that we do ask for a section of the comp plan specifically addressing climate change and sprinkle it in. So
Right.
I think that should maybe be revisited, and I think I might make a motion to that effect if we have some discussion first, perhaps.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Linda?
I think this is a good time for me to bring up the fact that at this meeting, if you decide to make a motion, please write it down. And when you write it down, and then if has the general group just starts talking and words change and everything, when you have a change in the words in your motion, go ahead and write them down, cross out what didn't work and put in what does. I'm having a hard time when it's a verbal group motion that's made, knowing what the final words were. So if everybody will write down their motion when they go to make one, then we can discuss it and any changes can be made to that written down, and then you can send them to me. I will still be writing them down, but I want to make sure I'm getting the correct verbiage, and that's been a problem. So I appreciate everybody's help with that, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. Okay, well, I would propose that, David, maybe you sketch out a motion, but in the meantime, let's have a general discussion amongst the commissioners as to whether we want to go forward with such a motion. Are you comfortable with that, Dave?
Yeah, I'm drafting a motion right now.
Great. So we've heard from Steve Smith and from Sheila. Mike?
I tend to agree, but how much of what we've been hearing over the last few months from this group, ad hoc group, and then we referred to council to give us some direction last month, how much of that is about climate change? I mean, is climate change a big part of that, asking us to consider it in our comp plan? And so we're essentially pulling, I don't know, are we pulling some of it out of there? Are we now taking a position that we're going to do it versus having the council's, their direction? So I can't remember all that was included in their comments, but I think climate change was clearly one of them, and the impact.
So would you be in favor of the motion that we're discussing as a potential motion?
Yeah, I mean, I'd vote for it if everybody voted for it. It's just to me, it's a bigger thing. It's climate change is part of what we're being asked to reconsider, which is our vision statement, and where does climate change fit in that, and all the other stuff. So I'm just not sure, but I certainly would go along with the comments. I appreciate and agree with the comments.
Okay. Are there other comments from the commissioners? Dale or Steve Ruby or who am I forgetting here?
This is Steve Ruby. I think Erica proposed an idea that she come up with some specific way of addressing it. Erica, would you go back to that? What you were proposing?
Yes. My thought was, I think it deserves, a discussion topic where we've had an opportunity to prepare. And I think there's a variety of ways to address climate change in our comprehensive plan. And since it's an important topic, I think what we would like to do from a staff perspective is be able to go out and provide you with a couple different examples of how it's other comp plans have addressed this. So you can maybe see some examples of it. And also for us to go back and take a look and see what we've what we've put into the different elements. I think just a general review of what we've done so far. And then having a strategy, an overall strategy, or, are we going to focus on, energy? I don't know. I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head. And I really think that, that the Planning Commission can give us some really good, I got the ideas are, and I think we can do a little bit of research and come back to you with some other ideas, and we can have a nice discussion about this. I just don't think we're prepared to do it today. And like I said, if you, I think it's fine for you guys to the Planning Commission to say we're going to put a whole section of in there to address climate change. And I think it's fine to also have it sprinkled throughout. I don't think that that's a problem, if that's the direction you would like to go. But I think we should just have a Planning Commission agenda where we talk about the different things that we've already put in the comp plan and things we think we might need and where we're finding it, just a review of that topic, kind of like we've done with the rest of the topic discussions.
Okay, Erica, when do you think the department we could have that discussion? When would you be prepared to go ahead and present that to us, or that material? We're trying to juggle the land use map and natural resource map work. So I think it's an either or situation. If we want to put that work out and make the climate change issue the thing that we do in the next 2 meetings, because I think it will probably take 2 meetings, then we would push the rest of our map and natural resource work out. Or we can, get the direction that we need on some of the map changes and the natural resources work, and then come back when we're doing the internal consistency review and have that as a topic. It kind of depends on what your urgency is, and if you feel like you don't want to make any, continue further with a comp plan until we've had this discussion, then we'll put off the stuff we had planned and we'll put this on to the next agenda.
Okay, well, I think we should poll the commission on that point. And I see both Sheila and Steve Smith have their hands up. Steve?
And there being a new member, that I would really appreciate having staff go through and do what Erica just suggested, and that is bring all that information together and present, here's where we've been, here's what some ideas are, here's some things that other people are doing, and present that as a idea to us before we take action. At least for me, that would be very beneficial.
And are you proposing that should supersede the natural resource and the mapping, and that would come at the next meeting or two? Is that your position?
No, not necessarily. I'm not saying it's needs to interrupt the process. I'm just simply saying, rather than going to council and saying, hey, we propose that we're going to ask for standalone or sprinkle or some combination, rather, I think I would just like to have a lot of information, because I just simply don't have enough information right now to be able to make an intelligent decision.
Okay. Sheila, you had a comment?
It seems to me that climate change and issues around it will drive what we decide to do with natural resources and the rest of it. So it seems to me like getting that climate change piece in there is necessary in order for us to make reasonable decisions going forward on natural resource lands.
Okay. David?
Well, I hate to throw a wrench in things, and I think we're so prepared and ready to talk about natural resource land that that we can effectively do that now on the community development schedule. And if we choose to ask for a standalone climate change section, then we can have a comprehensive, cohesive place to make sure that we get climate change addressed effectively. And I just am concerned that we continue to give it a back seat, then the plan is going to be done and we're going to have missed an opportunity to be climate leaders. And I think in our community, it's a small, special place with so many great people and special resources that we have the opportunity to really be leaders in our, not only in our community, in our state, but in our nation and in the world. And we're so well positioned to do that. And I think if we don't elevate this, it doesn't happen, and it's sort of status quo. So that's where I'm at. And if you see in the chat, I have a motion prepared that I'd like to propose, and we'll see if it gets any traction or not, I guess. So if I could read that really quick. Propose that the Planning Commission recommend San Juan County Council direct San Juan Community Development to include a standalone climate change section in the comprehensive plan. The section might be based on other comprehensive plans that show climate leadership. So that's, I so move.
I will second.
Camille? May I interject
Yes.
real quick? I'm not sure how this is set up for the chat on the legislative hearing room. David, would you be willing to send that motion to me once we take action on it?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see if there's action to be taken.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Thank you, Camille.
Okay, so I seconded the motion. Discussion, Erica? I don't know what's happened to Erica, but Mike?
Hold on.
I'm going to go check on Erica.
I'll go ahead. I'm not sure we know enough. I'm not sure I'd vote yes on this because I'm not sure we know enough about what is scattered throughout the comp plan versus bringing it all together. It reminds me of the conversation we had about a separate rural section. At one time, the GMA calls for a separate rural section, but the decision was made to spread it all out in various sections. And that's why I was trying to figure out what is in there now. And would it be more effective, or would it be more inclusive there to have it as in one place or in variety of places? So to say that we believe
reporting on the AV equipment.
Linda, you're
it's going to show me the chat.
The chat's always going to be saved in the meeting. All you see this show.
Anyway, I think you got the point.
Yeah. What my understanding, Mike, was that it would be, a dual purpose. It would be asking for, a discussion of having a separate climate change section and maybe including sprinkling it throughout the comp plan.
And I understand. I wouldn't be against that, but I'm not sure it's necessary. I mean, when you start to pull everything, when you start to do this, this becomes a huge project. And I just want to make sure it's a huge project that we agree to do with all the knowledge we have about the existing stuff in there and say, I've looked at this and I think it's a heck of a lot more effective to have one central place versus both. So, my view is anyway, I've said what I think. I'm not sure we want to direct council to tell CDC to do a really significant project.
Part question, really, there's also the timing issue as to whether we want to have the discussion on climate change prior to moving ahead with the natural resource land goals and policies and mapping. So we need to
just as a quick point of order, I muted Linda so that we weren't getting her interference. So Linda may need to mute herself.
I like your power there, Steve. That's great.
Sorry.
Okay.
So if I might clarify my motion a bit, I understand the concerns about creating a tremendous amount of workload, and that's not my intent. I'm I think this climate change section may simply be pulling out all the existing climate change language and summarizing it in one section, and then looking at that, and then we could go, hey, we're missing A, B, and C out of this, or these need further fleshing out. It's not a whole new document. It's taking what we have done and consolidating it into one spot. And yeah, there'll be a little bit of duplicity in the document in the comprehensive plan, but I think that's okay. The thing's a monster, and with all these tentacles and arms, it's hard to know where we're at any one time. So I see this as just more of a summary document that lets us be informed about what we're doing holistically towards climate change. And I think this is a massive issue that needs to be elevated, and we would be highly incentivized to do that, because it's such an opportunity that could be lost. Just we're talking about the 20-year plan.
Right. Would you like to, Steve Smith?
Just as a question, David, do you believe that we need to ask for direction from the council in order to be able to do that, or can the staff go ahead and do it based on our request?
Well, I think part of my motion was to clarify that exact question. And I think there'll be absolute clarity if we do make this motion and we pass this motion. I think when Erica spoke earlier, the reason I want to put this forward is it wasn't exactly clear where we stood on this and whether or not how we might move forward. So this would just give us clarity and everyone clarity.
Would you reread your motion, please, David?
Yeah, most certainly. And if you guys click on the chat icon on your screen, you can see it. It's up there. I typed it into the chat bar. So I said I proposed the motion that the Planning Commission recommend the council direct the community development to include a standalone climate section in the comprehensive plan. This section might be based on other comprehensive plans that show climate leadership. So again, I'm not asking community development to create new content. They're going to go out there and look for maybe a nice example, but they might also just look to summarize what we've already put into the comprehensive plan draft.
Okay. Is there further discussion of the motion before we vote?
I'll just make the quick comment. I'm not opposed to what David's proposing as a concept. I just don't see why we need to ask the council to give us that direction. I think we as a planning commission would have the authority to ask the staff to pull that together, and basically Erica suggested that she's willing to do that without waiting on council to give us direction. For example, last meeting we asked council to take action and it didn't even get on their agenda. So, I'm a little bit concerned, but by making this a motion the way you're proposing it, is that it will actually slow it down rather than speed it up.
Well, I think
I'd be open to friendly amendments.
I think earlier Erica indicated she wasn't sure if we had that council had directed that for us to do that, or if the commission had independently looked at that. So Erica, can you respond, and then we'll get some clarity and maybe amend David's motion if need be.
Yes, I don't think you need to make a motion to recommend a standalone climate change section. I think what I'm hearing from the Planning Commission is that you would like more information before you maybe make a decision about where it should go in the comp plan. I think it's fine if you want, as you as a Planning Commission want to add a section and have it sprinkled throughout. But I really think that what's needed is a little bit of support from us in terms of giving you some background, like taking a look, where is it? What have we done, in the comp plan to date? So the history and the background, especially for the folks that haven't been in on the process, and as a reminder for all of us, and then some ideas or some suggestions that we go out and do a little bit of looking around at other good examples, and public comments that we've received, because we've had a lot of public comments on this as well. And so I don't think your motion needs to go to the county council to give us direction. I think the Planning Commission just needs to decide, we want to make this an agenda item next meeting, and if so, we'll move, and if it's important enough, we'll move stuff around so that we have time to work on that versus working on the things we had planned. So I think that seems to be where you're heading.
Yeah. Okay, I agree. I think that the intention is to elevate the importance of the climate change in terms of the comp plan and move it forward. David, would you entertain amending your motion so that it didn't require the county council to direct us, that we would direct the staff to present this for us?
I think that's a totally different
Okay.
idea. I think we just call a vote on this, and then if we don't like it, then let's move along, and someone else can propose something else, perhaps.
Okay.
So,
All right. Steve, Mike, I see several hands.
Yeah, Mike. Oh, sorry, Steve. I don't know if you're raising your hand. David, how do you anticipate that the department ought to look at the vision statement with respect to this whole subject?
well, the vision statement, as you recall, we added a new section on climate change that didn't exist in the prior plan. So I think this just gives it more visibility. And I mean, I personally would have liked to see all the new sections that were added to the vision statement have a section in the comp plan, because I think that's how it should flow linearly out of that document. So, yeah. But again, this was to the question of where did the planning commission stand on this in the past? Where is the council's position? And that wasn't clear to me. I'm not clear that it is still. So that's why I think we just vote on this and then move along.
Okay. Steve?
I think I would not support the motion at this time. I think we ought to just let Erica put it on the agenda for next month, and let's go ahead and get the information. Hopefully, if it's on the agenda for next month, that we can get some information from Erica prior to that meeting, so we can go ahead and review that material. And so when we get to the meeting next month, we can go ahead and actually, have a good, thorough discussion. And maybe it needs to go on to the next meeting after that, but we can address this issue before we go ahead and make some motion requesting the council, Okay, that's all it is.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else? Steve Smith?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, then, Dale, do you have a comment before I call the question?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Well, I'm just glad we've had this discussion. And going back to where this all started, we were in policy 1E.
Yes.
About development of urban growth areas. And I really thought that what we've added as we made sense as a specific for what becomes a more and more concentrated development within an urban growth area, which contributes more potential pollution to our fish bay. So I just like that idea.
I'm having a really hard time hearing you. Is anybody else that
so weird. If I'm closer, does that make?
That seems to be better. I heard that you were circling back to the item E and F under the goal 2.
I guess what I was trying to say was I really appreciate the discussion. I think we need to keep this in mind. I would look forward to next month, or even, not to get 2 months, based on what Adam would give the time might take. But to do a good job of drawing all the various portions of our comp plan and regulations that exist today as we go forward. So when we come to specific items like 1E that was added by Adam in his draft, we can keep in mind that we don't have to be concerned about dealing with climate change because it's dealt more globally.
Okay.
So that was.
Thank you. All right. I'll call the question on David King's motion. All those in favor, Sheila Godwin,
I'm going to vote no at this time.
David Kane,
I'm going to continue to support my motion.
okay. Has Nick Nollinger been a silent participant? I don't think so. Mike Pickett,
Yeah, I'm going to vote no, but I want it on the record that I strongly support us digging deeper into this whole issue of climate, et cetera, but in a different fashion.
okay. Dale Randy,
I'll vote no.
Steve Ruby,
No.
can you vote? Steve Smith,
No.
and I also will vote no. The motion fails. Erica, you have the understanding, I believe, that you will present, that staff will present at the February meeting a discussion and comprehensive overlook of where climate change is in the comprehensive plan. And our intention is to elevate the importance of climate change in this document.
Yes, that is my understanding. Thank you.
Very good. Okay.
Madam Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
David, what was your vote?
He said he supported his motion.
Okay, so there was one yes and the rest of you were no.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Adam, back to your presentation. It seemed like there was still one question that you were asking for instruction on, which was whether to go back and include. Can you hear me? I feel like
I can, yeah.
Okay. Was to whether goal 2 only addressed going forward, issues going forward, or whether we wanted to take a look at this, more holistically in terms of existing performance, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Yes, so that was one of the things that you were talking about before we kind of got on our
we dealt with other business, more pressing.
Yes. So that was one of the things that you talked about is wanting something that maybe addresses existing uses and how they relate to this kind of community character question that we're looking at here in the UGAs. I don't have something off the top of my head, and I think the next time we look at this, I'll just incorporate something. I'll add a placeholder in here just so that we keep track of it. I'll just put that in at the moment. Let me share my screen again, so you guys can see what we're doing here. So I'll just put a placeholder in here. And we'll put something together. If you have some specific direction about that, we can note that down. Otherwise, I'll just plan on bringing this back next time.
Okay, well, let's do that. Why don't you plan on that, and then we'll continue on with today's agenda, unless we need to take a break.
One quick thing. Before we started talking about climate change section, it had been recommended that maybe we include some kind of language here about greenhouse gases or something, but then it was recommended that maybe we don't. I could really use some specific direction from the Planning Commission about whether we want to add something here or if this is okay without any addition. I've highlighted what was kind of a placeholder in our discussion there.
Right. I believe the consensus was not to add language at this time, but if someone objects to that, please raise your hand. And I think not seeing any hands, well, let's assume that we won't add, we're not asking you to add any language there at this time. Okay. All right. My question to the commission is, and staff, would you like to take a 10-minute break, or would you like to continue right now?
I think we should take a quick break.
Okay. Let's resume at 10:45. That's a little over 10 minutes from now.